Good morning. Today we're going to be taking a look at what we need to do a multi-table select inside SQL and know what it is, how we can actually make that happen. We're also going to give a bad example, go to a better example, and then finally go to the best case. So to start off with this, let's go ahead and take a look at the example of a regular single table select statement. As you can see right here, I'm selecting everything from the games table, and I have a where clause, some of those results, so I'm only going to get the game genres that are like something with fighting in it, and I'm ordered by the title going in ascending fashion. So that gives us a regular, all the games that match that sequence go in a single table, really good to go. And it gives us everything from that column. Now, we can go over and do a multi-table select, and we can do it the bad way. We're going to do that first because we want to identify what is wrong with that and then go from there. The bad way is called the Cartesian product. So if you've ever done your matrix multiplication stuff in your math class, where you have the matrix multiplied by another matrix, and the results get ridiculously huge really fast, the reason they get so huge so fast it makes the camera spin is because you have as wide as you have the columns plus the other columns in the two different matrices, but the height of the matrix goes by the number of rows times the number of the other rows, aka it gets huge way too fast. So a Cartesian product is what we don't want to see when we're doing a multi-table select. It's the same exact problem when you're doing matrix multiplication. We generally don't want to get everything. We want to get just a specific subset of information. So the bad example happens by doing select everything from, and then we have two different columns, we have two different tables or more in our from clause. In this case, I have games and publishers. And from there, I'm going to do my where clause. Again, I'm going to use that same exact where clause from the student selection earlier, where game genre is like fighting, and then order by game title. And that will give me all of the columns that would go in along with this. Really huge, really tall, really ridiculous, and not very helpful for what we're actually working with. Too much information means we don't actually get good information. So let's go over here and let's take a look at the better version. The OK version when we're doing a multi-table select is where we have a compound where clause that does the restrictions for us. So in the OK selection, we start off with a select, and we do the two different fields we're looking for. I did a little bit better specification on this, where I'm using games.name and publishers.name as well, so I can get the name out of that. In my from clause, I still have two different tables selected. However, in my where clause, I have denoted within this section right here, I have a predicate that limits the results of that table to just the ones where the game's publisher matches the publisher ID. So I'm matching on a foreign key, primary key path, which means I have a really narrowed path of results, and it gets me the information I really need to see. The next thing I have is a compound, like I said in there, and an and clause. And then I have my restriction on there, where my game genre is like fighting, and I still keep my order by statement at the bottom. And that shrinks down my results to something that's actually manageable and usable. For the better version, when we're talking about using a multi-table select, we use the standard ANSI join sequence. And so we can see that right here with our select statement. We have the reference right here, games.name again, and publishers.name as well. Same basic selection I'm doing. On the from, I only have one table listed. It's the games table. And then I use the join clause, and I join that to the other table I'm working with, in this case, publishers. I have an on clause, which is the predicate where I match the table on the foreign key matching sequence. This is where my path between foreign key and private key match up. And so I have right here, games.publisher matches publisher.id using the equal sign. And the order in my on clause doesn't matter. As long as my on clause has the correct sequence of foreign key to primary key, we're good to go. I then continue on with my regular where clause to limit the results down. That predicate happens and just good to go. And finally, my order by works in the same way it has been. Now, this is the standard ANSI join sequence. We can make this go one step better by using the idea of using aliasing. So let's take a look at that and go one step better and make this a little bit even better of a result for multi-table joins. This becomes a really big, helpful tool when I'm doing complex queries that have, say, for example, 3 or more tables, or especially if I'm doing multi-table joins and nested joins, because then my results get very deep, very detailed, and I want to make sure I keep track of the current table's results a lot more specifically. So the way we do that right here for aliasing, I have my standard select clause, but notice in my select clause I have g.name and pub.name. The reason that happens is because select actually happens next to last. The first thing we have to do first is we go to our from clause. In my from clause, I'm taking this table, games, and I'm aliasing it as G. And so that way I refer to the G now, and it refers to everything outside the games table, and allows it to be a lot more easy to identify. Now, I really don't recommend using a single character as a reference for anything ever, but for the demo purposes and explaining what we're doing with this, a single character is okay this one time. We have a better example right here in the join clause, where I join on that with publishers pub. That way I have the alias of pub. It's a shorthand version of it. It's 3 letters long. I can read it, and as a human being, oh, pub, I have an idea of that. It's either going to be talking about a place to go drink, or it's talking about publishers. And the fact that I'm talking about games and pub, that limits it down more likely to publishers anyway. So I have a good idea for that. And then I do the on clause. In my on clause, I still have the same logic itself, but instead of using the full name of the table, I have g.publisher and pub.id. And again, just like before, the order of the values inside the predicate doesn't match. As long as I have a path from the foreign key to the primary key, as long as they're both there, we're good to go. Then I have my regular where clause. Again, notice that I'm using that alias of g.genre. That way I'm referring to the genre of the games table, and I have that information inside there. Then I use the like keyword, as I always have been, and the single quotes to match what's inside there. In this case, it's fighting. So anywhere it has the word fighting, it'll have that result for me. And I still keep in with my order by clause where I sort it in by game title. So I have the information, so I can sort that right there. So again, we've gone over the basic approach of how we can do a multi-table select. We've used the example of using the better version. We're using aliasing, where I use a shorthand version of a table name using the alias of a table. And when we're aliasing a table, again, it's just the name of the table, followed by a space, followed by the alias we're working with. And most of the time, that shouldn't be a single letter. It should be at least 3 letters so I can identify what we're talking about. The proper version we're working with at least is using the standard ANSI join sequence, where I select from a table. I get all the columns I want to look at. I have a from, I specify my first table. I join on my second table. I have my on predicate that matches all the values. If I have 3 or more tables, I have additional join on clauses, so I can compound all those things and do the correct joins on top of that. The OK version for quick and dirty queries, when if we're trying to just get a basic result really fast, maybe to evaluate something, see if we're on the right track, is where I use the select clause. Then I have my from, and I have my table separated by commas. But inside my where, I have that foreign key to primary key path specified first, which really restricts down the results. The only problem with this is, when I have that where clause being so complex, it makes it so it's really hard to identify what we're working with. And so we want to try and make this as easy to understand as possible. And that's why the ANSI join sequence is a lot better to identify what we're working with, so we can keep track of what is the logic for the actual structure of the query versus what is the logic to actually keep the actual results down to what we're looking for. So that's why I like to use the join on structure when we're working with that. And again, as always, we want to avoid the bad, which is the Cartesian product, because the Cartesian product makes the camera go way up here and then way back down here, because the results from that query are too big to calculate, because it's a multiplication on the number of rows. So if I have 10,000 rows in one query and 5,000 on the other, I have 10,000 times 5,000, aka I have too many stupid things to worry about. We don't want to deal with this. So we want to make sure we use, instead of the Cartesian product, we use the correct approach of using quick and dirty, using a where with a matching on the path, or the more appropriate way where I have the join on clause, again matching on this primary key to the foreign key path, avoids the Cartesian product, gets us a better query, and we can actually get information we can use like we did over here with a regular single table query result. Thanks again and have a great day. We'll do some more database queries in the future. Bye.